Yeah. Brian, which one of us is the diva of the podcast? Don't say it, 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 don't say it.
We both know.
No, we don't. It's Paul.
When he's here, yeah. How about the one who is saying, don't say it, don't say it, don't say it? That's very diva.
I just don't want you to talk that way about yourself. That's I have a lot of respect for you, Brian, and I hope that you just have the same respect for yourself.
So, listeners, this is an episode that Matt has been dreading, but I talked him into it, finally.
We haven't even started the episode and I already hate it. Hey everyone, welcome back to TV Guys, now with 50% more Kardashian references. I'm Matt.
I'm Brian, and actually, I don't have any Kardashian references on mine.
Well, we've made two so far, and that is at least a 50% uptick from our zero. So
I don't
we're
think we've
on
ever
track.
mentioned them before, have we? Not
There
that I
you
can
go.
recall.
No, but that's it. That's the references. We shot it in the first second, and we're done.
Yeah, we could get there by we talk about Friends quite a bit, and Ross was in that the Kardashian biopic movie thing for OJ.
Oh yes. Although that's not a Kardashian bio. That's not about the Kardashians
Well,
as much as it is about the
it's
trial.
about Robert Kardashian.
I mean, fair, but still. I'm sure Kim didn't show up and be like, and now it's time for me to film a sex tape.
I don't know. I haven't
Or
seen
did
it.
she? Because I guess I don't know. That might have happened. But no, we are talking about a character type that every time when it's just like, hey, we're going to talk about a diva character, I'm like, Brian, I hate this character. This is just the worst character. I do not like divas. I look like we're gonna get into these, but I mean, the first one to me, like before, just as a litmus test for
Yes.
us, is that like the diva that I think of that is like quintessential is Miss Piggy from the Muppets. And
Oh, we're
I
getting started
love
off
the
right off with her.
Muppets. Yeah,
I got
I
a lot of
love the
thoughts.
Muppets. I bet you do. I love the Muppets. I don't like Miss Piggy. Anytime that there's like Miss Piggy stuff involved, I'm like, this is too much Miss Piggy for me. And the thing that I don't like about her dynamic in the group is that they so oftentimes enable her. Now, I'm not blaming Miss Piggy for our current self-centered generations and our social media like problems that we have.
Yeah.
But I think we tend to do the same thing where we enable people that really shouldn't be enabled anymore, hence the Kardashians. And I think that like it's a microcosm by seeing it in the Muppets of like Miss Piggy and how she's treated is similar to how we treat a lot of celebrities that really shouldn't get the time of day. So
Yeah.
that maybe that whole type of thing is what really gets at me about divas, is people enabling those who are just like, no one cares or
Yeah.
should.
I get everything you're saying is valid. So one thing I'm going to be doing with all of my picks, and then if I know your picks, I'll try to do it too, is try to find at least one redeeming moment from all of them, because all of them
Okay.
on my list have them, including Miss Piggy. So the thing with Miss Piggy is she's much less nuanced now than she was, because nobody knew or knows Miss Piggy better than Frank Oz, her original performer and creator. And
maybe you.
That's blasphemy to say.
But you thought about it, and that's what's important.
As long as he's still alive, I can be number two.
Okay.
Because Frank Oz was always very into his characters and like in character development. He knew those characters very well, and he would play them. And he always kind of said Miss Piggy was like a truck driver who's trying to be a pageant queen, or something like that, where like she has all these insecurities and she wants to be beautiful, and it's that bravado and putting herself out there. And so you see in a lot of the earlier stuff for Miss Piggy, especially like in the Muppet Show in the early movies, cracks of her sensitivity and insecurities peeking out more. Whereas later on, she kind of became flanderized and became just fully diva. Like Miss Piggy in the Muppets 2015 series has one moment that I'll talk about that is redeeming. Other than that, she's completely insufferable in that series. But she was much more of a nuanced, intricate character back when she was performed by Frank Oz.
Okay,
Like
so
all
what was the 20? What was? Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, real quick. I'm
I was
saying
trying to
all
direct you.
three of the original movies, back when Jim Henson was alive, have a moment where Miss Piggy saves the day. She busts out of her and Kermit being tied up to save Kermit from the mad scientist. In the Great Muppet Caper, she drives a motorcycle through a stained glass window to save the Muppets from the bad guys. And in the Muppets Take Manhattan, her karate chop sends Kermit flying across the room and knocks his amnesia out of him.
Driving a motorcycle through a stained glass window is the very definition of diva behavior. It's like, this is how you make an entrance, and you can't just walk into a room as a diva. You have to drive a motorcycle through a stained glass window.
But the rest of the Muppets were being held up by gunpoint, and then that's how she got the Muppets, got the bad guys away from them.
That's fair. I mean, you're right that Miss Piggy, like, I can't hate Miss Piggy, but she's definitely my least favorite Muppet.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
of like the big name ones. There's
yeah.
like some that I'm like, I don't know that person's name, so
Yeah.
I don't.
I don't have that problem. But in the 2015 series, there's an episode where Miss Piggy's trying to like find a friend. She realizes she doesn't have any friends, and so and in process of trying to make friends, she ends up being like extra diva, extra like just unaware of how out of touch she is, and she's really annoying. But through this, Uncle Deadly, who is like her right hand man, her assistant, is like right with her throughout the whole thing, helping her through the process. And at the end of the episode, they had done this runner where Uncle Deadly was doing a one-man show of Clueless, where he plays Shara Horowitz, this like horrible, ugly monster playing the characters in Clueless.
Yeah.
And they show he's on stage. He wasn't really expecting anyone to show up, and the lights show up. And not only is Miss Piggy there, but like all the rest of the Muppets are there, and it's kind of implied that Miss Piggy got the entire gang to come and support him because he realized that he was her friend all along. And she said something like, "You'll do great," or something encouraging. And like in that moment, like that was a really good Miss Piggy moment. Few and far between, but redemption counted.
Yeah, I think the times that I laugh at Miss Piggy is when she realizes who she's surrounded by.
Yeah.
That like in the Muppets movie with Jason Segel, that like her just watching Muppet Man unfold in front of her and just like, what is going on, and then realizing it's Muppet Man and like
And
being upset about that,
banging her head on the table.
all that whole scene I thought was great, as she's just like, I'm trying to be this elitist person, and this weird, tall, gangly thing is walking around in here.
Yeah.
So that stuff like that, when they play it for laughs, I can get that, but it's still,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll stop my hating.
It would be very expensive, but I think they just need to hire Frank Oz to write Miss Piggy scenes in every Muppet thing they do, and it'll get better.
There you go. Nah, that's fine. He's not doing anything else, right? Yoda's gone. He's not directing anymore.
He's not directing anymore?
I don't think so. What's the last thing he's directed?
I don't know. I thought originally that's why he left the Muppets, was to focus on directing, but that was 20 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, he made a number of movies in the 90s. I think my favorite Frank Oz movie is House Sitter with Steve Martin and Goldie Hawn.
Okay.
That's a pretty fun one, but it's very 90s.
It is very 90s.
Especially with those headliners, believe it or not. All right. So go ahead. So I steered us to Miss Piggy. Why don't you steer us to one of your picks?
All right, another one I think is a very quintessential diva is Rachel Green on Friends, who I think that throughout the show, it's like a gradual, she became less of a diva over time, but she was very, like, in the beginning, especially season 1, the pilot, she was full on diva.
Yeah. I agree completely with Rachel that like she had that progression, but that she's not insufferable for me. She's still my least favorite. Here's what I think. Here's what I think Friends did well with her is that they were able to make us see her through Ross's eyes, and so we saw. And Jennifer Aniston is a really good actor, and so she brought a really nice natural charm to that role. So we were softened to some of Rachel's harder edges, even early on, because we see her the way that Ross talks about her. Yeah. And so once that we had that, then it's like, oh, of course, she's just part of the friend group. It's natural. And overall, she has a number of solid scenes.
Oh, yeah.
But there are like some, like her biggest to me one of the biggest like frustrations. You're like, I'm gonna find redeemable moments. I'm gonna like, I'm gonna find the worst stuff. Like one of the more annoying ones was like when she takes that class with Phoebe. And so like Phoebe
Oh
the
yeah,
book club class, and Phoebe's all into the book, and she's like, well, didn't she read it? And Rachel's like, oh, I found something better to read, Vogue. And
yeah.
like that is a very diva behavior, and that was like, I don't like her in this episode at all. And so I'm glad that, you know, Phoebe was able to embarrass her with the robot storyline.
Oh yeah, because she kept stealing all of Phoebe's stuff, and then Phoebe caught on to that.
Yep.
I haven't seen that one in forever. I don't even know what the rest of that. What was the A story in that? Because that was the B story. I don't know.
You're right. Because I remember, I think Monica was involved in the A story, but then she pops up at the end of the B story because it's like, well, what if
Oh
we bring
yeah,
Monica to this?
and
And
of
it's
course
like,
Monica's like, I know, I know, I know.
Monica, you asked the question.
Yeah, which is so Monica. But I think
Yes.
you really see they promote her as a diva in the pilot. In the pilot, she's like, "Oh, I don't know. My dad pays for everything. How do you pay for things? What's a job?" And it's like, I'm glad that they didn't make her that airheaded for very long
Yes.
because they made her struggling, and they brought that back a little bit every now and then when they had her sorority sisters come in, or her sisters were talking about how like oh like I've been out on dad's boat and this and that. But in the pilot alone, she probably would have been my least favorite friend. But the series as a whole, she's probably fourth on the list, maybe even third, fourth.
That's fine. I I don't need to do fourth. You like I'm sure you like Chandler and Joey and Phoebe more, right?
Yeah, she
You
goes
like her.
back. Yeah. Monica's my least favorite, and then
Uh
Ross has great moments later on. I don't like early seasons Ross. I like late seasons
yeah.
Ross.
Is it because Monica gives OCD people a bad name?
It's because she's just not that fun.
True, she does have multiple sticks up her butt, but she arranges them in size and thickness. So you're
Michael
welcome.
Scott is saying it. I'm not going to say it.
No, go ahead. Yeah, of the divas that I like, I didn't have her on my list, but if she was, she'd be my second best on here. Here's
Okay.
another one that is really in the diva category. I'm going to kind of stretch it a few different times with this,
Okay.
but this is very diva. Is Donna from Parks and Rec.
She's on my list too.
She's not a bad character.
No.
But she's used in a small amount and in small doses, so
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't make me be like, "Oh my gosh, Donna, I'm so annoyed at you." Very rarely does she pipe in, and I'm like, "I don't like what you're contributing." She is. I don't think she ever in any of the episodes had the A plot, but I think that she does a lot of B plots, and she does it just fine. And but she's not like the one that is like I think you know it's funny because this show also has a male diva as well,
Yeah.
and I don't mind. Why am I blanking on his name?
Tom.
Tom. I was gonna call him Tommy. I'm like, it's not Tommy. No, but Tom is a very good diva character because you poke fun at him. He's goofy, but you get to see like his heart. He's metrosexual, but he's not entitled. And
Yeah.
so, like, he's the good parts of divas. Like, there's nothing wrong with the treat yourself mentality that
Yeah.
they
I was gonna say
have.
you got to mention treat yourself.
But like, treat yourself to me isn't about Donna. Like, Donna's a part of that because, of course, she would be a part of that. But for me, the funniest parts of treat yourself are between Tom and when they bring Ben along.
Mm-hmm.
And like, they're especially because Ben, this is not his world. And so, like, he's not quite getting this concept until he buys the Batman suit. It's like, okay, this is your version of treat yourself. We're with you. That's a great spin on it. So Donna's not the strongest one, but Tom is actually a really good diva character
Yeah.
that is actually funny and endearing.
You know, it's funny with Donna. They bring in Keegan Michael Key to be her boyfriend, husband later on,
Mhm.
and it's interesting seeing him be the straight man because he can play the off the wall crazy character. You've seen that in Key and Peele, but he's balanced off of Tom and Donna's. He like, and it was like treat yourself. Even Jerry's like treat yourself, and he's like, I have no idea what's going on. It's not helpful.
He does a great straight man too, but
Yeah.
weirdly enough. What's your top Donna moment? Because I actually have one Donna moment that I'm like, okay, this I'm all about. As I
It's whenever she gets to interact with Jerry, like when Jerry's doing like that, licking the envelopes and realizes he did it wrong. She's like, I'm good with you. I'm going to make coffee. I'll stay with you. Or like she fishes all of Jerry's stuff out of the grate at the end. It's like she knows that Jerry's an oaf, but she has a soft spot for him. And that was going to be the moment I brought for like the redemption arc, because they're a good pair, because they're the two who were part of the main cast, but they're definitely the least important out of the main
Yeah.
cast.
I actually really liked the episode when they are assigning like what dog is your personality,
Oh yeah.
and so
Oh
then
yeah.
April just throws some random dog at her, and she's like, "All right, well that's not, you're not playing the game right. It's actually offensive how you did that."
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really great of like making her go for like making April go deeper in how she's interacting with people, because that's not her strong suit. And so to be able to actually dig deep of why do you like Donna? Why is she someone that you respect? And then you found the animal that ties into
Mm-hmm.
her.
That's true. And like she earned Donna's respect by treating her like a person.
Yes.
And there's another April, Ann, and Donna moment that Donna saves, because it wouldn't nearly have been as funny without her. When April and Anne are singing Time After Time, and without knowing what's going on, Donna just opens the door and sings along with them, and then closes the door as they're done. She didn't need to know what's going on. They're singing Time After Time. I'm joining in, and that made that moment.
Nice. There you go. I vaguely remember that. I like because they're in the courtyard, right? I just don't remember anything else about that moment.
I'll go with a one. I'm not sure if you have it on our list, but I think she counts. Tahani from The Good Place.
She absolutely counts.
Mm-hmm.
I like that she's like of the four, it's the same sort of thing. Of the four, she's my least favorite.
Yeah.
But I like that they really poke fun at like this is not a desirable trait to have, and that she needs to grow in it. Like, sure, you keep the name dropping, that can be a funny gimmick.
Yeah.
Sometimes a little overused, but it's really a lot of like this is why she's that way, and her whole journey of getting outside of that, because I love the test that she goes through as she's walking down the hallway with the doors,
Mm-hmm.
and like trying not to care about what people think, and then she has to go in to see what her parents say, and they're still talking about her sister. I think that's the best character moment for her in the whole series, and I really enjoyed that scene.
Yeah, you stole my moment, but yeah, that's a good one there. Because she definitely is insufferable a lot of the time, but she grows a lot out of those. I think her and Eleanor have the most to be able to need to grow out of
Yeah.
the four of them. I mean, yeah, Jason's just kind of a dumb puppy the whole time.
Yeah, he has a little bit of growth, but
Yeah.
I find that amazing with Jason is that they let him finally be the monk, like
Yeah.
at the end of just standing in silence and just taking time as he waited for
Mm-hmm.
Janet to pop up again.
And then he's like, "What do you mean, like a month?" Like
Yeah.
that went way over his head.
Yeah.
And I like that at the end they showed Tahani like being good at everything because she has infinite time to practice everything. And they even brought in Nick Offerman to be like, "Yes, this chair is a good chair." I mean, he said specific chair things that I don't know because I'm not a chair person.
This chair is the chair that you would sit on if you needed a chair. Thanks, Nick.
That's how Ron Swanson would say it.
Yeah, he'd be very matter of fact. He might not tell you why. He's like, this is a good chair, and that's it. That's all you get. I'm very sorry for taking your moment with Tahani. Did you have more to share about Tahani?
Not really, because I knew some of these would have more discussion than others. I knew we'd spend a lot of time on Miss Piggy. I didn't think we'd start right off the bat with her.
Here's a short one
that
we won't go into because she died in the second season of this 6-season show.
I know it.
Shannon from Lost. Yep.
As soon as you said that, I'm like 6 seasons. Yep, Shannon.
That's it. And she was one of the weakest of the main cast at the beginning. She got a little more interesting at the end of season 1, at the beginning of season 2, as she found a little bit more use. Like, it was the same sort of thing with Rachel, where we got to start seeing her through Saeed's eyes. And that Saeed was like, you're very capable and like actually someone who's like, I believe in you for who you are and not for what you can do for me. Because she's almost been like a tool for people that like guys just come in, they use her and then they leave, and like very few people viewed her for who she is, and they just viewed the outside package. And so it was good to see some growth at the end of season 1, and she starts to get into that growth in season 2, and you're like, okay, she can become a serviceable character. And then they kill her and you're like, that's fine. No big loss, but
they could have done more with Shannon, but it's kind of thing where there's so many characters in Lost that you can't keep them all around. So like if they kept Shannon, they would have had to kill somebody else. I think.
Yeah, I was just surprised at the first two like big dead are Shannon and Boone, the brother sister combo.
Yeah.
So do you have a redeeming one for? I know it's like very brief, but do you have a redeeming moment for Shannon?
I would say when she is with Saeed and going over the maps and like because she's translating because she knows French, and you see
Yes.
that moment where he looks at her, and it's not just that he's falling in love with her, but he's also realizing like he's seeing her like what she can do outside of just being hot.
Yeah, and it culminates in her singing across the sea in French. It's like, this is a nice moment.
Hmm. You know, she was gonna be on my list, but then I forgot to put her on my list, so I'm glad you mentioned her.
Well, there
I
you go.
I thought about it when I was at work. I'm like, oh yeah, when I make my list, I got to make Shannon, and then I didn't.
Yeah, and you didn't. Well, here we are. We have Shannon. We made sure we included her.
Yeah. Here's another one, and then okay, I'm gonna try. I'll have to try to think of my redeeming moment as we talk about it. But Kelly Kapoor from The Office,
Okay.
because she's definitely like quintessential diva.
Yep. I'll let you lead in so I don't take any of your thunder here.
It's just her whole thing is just needing like her personality is summed up by her New Year's resolution, which was to get more attention by any means necessary.
Yes.
And like she when they were playing that game where they're all betting and throwing money around because she was explaining Netflix to Ryan, which by the way explaining physical DVD Netflix. Where
Yes.
like you well she mentioned romantic comedies, she said awesome 12 times and this and that. Like she is definitely like a teenage girl trapped in a 20-something-year-old girl's body. Like that's just her. She's all about the drama, all about the attention, all about being the prettiest one in the room.
Yeah. And with The Office, you have a little bit of a difference because, like, yeah, there are characters that you care about, but she's not one of those. I care about what happens with Kelly
No, I don't.
because she's just done such bad things, and or like, and even stuff that they allude to is like, Kelly, you can't just say that you're raped whenever something doesn't go right for you. You can't keep
Yeah.
doing that, or not again, or something like that.
Yeah.
Or like when Ryan comes back and like she's like, "Well, you better be sticking around for this baby because I'm pregnant." And then just the talking head where she shakes her head no, like
Yeah.
that's a terrible thing to do to a person. And the
Yeah.
the lengths that she goes to get attention are comedic, but obviously should not be replicated. And just like with Angela, it's like this is a character that you can laugh at, that you don't really want to develop too much like familiarity or relatability, you know.
It's funny. I was having a conversation, and they said, "Who would you rather date, Kelly or Angela?" And I said Angela because I couldn't take all the manipulation and games that Kelly has. Because with Angela, at least you know what you're getting.
Well, they both are manipulation in games. That's their whole thing. It's just Kelly's not so good at them,
Yeah,
and Angela is like Kelly would at least care about you
yeah.
while you're dating her, even if she only is caring about the drama you bring or the attention you're giving her or whatever. Angela doesn't care. She's just whatever she will get from you. She'll is what
Okay,
she
so you date
wants.
Kelly and I'll date Angela.
I've I've got a wife, so I think I'm okay.
Ironically, your wife is named Angie.
That's true.
Okay, if pressed, actually, it's funny we're talking about Angela. My redeeming moment for Kelly is when she's legitimately trying to help Angela be good at answering the phones. When Angela's being rude, and she's like, "Okay, that was so good, but maybe you could be a little friendlier," or whatever she says.
Maybe the thing that you can work on with the apology is apologizing.
Yes.
That's good. How much time are we, or how many phone calls do you think we're wasting by taking this training? I know, right? It must be a lot.
Yeah. All right,
That's
who do you
good.
got, Matt?
All right. So the last one I said was Shannon. I feel like I've got the opposite end of the spectrum here, at least even like in terms of brain power and drive is from Gilmore Girls. I consider Paris a diva, and it's not your
Okay.
typical diva, but where it's like everything is so extra and so big, but it
Yeah.
is very entitled. Look at me. There's only room for one. That sort of side of it. So it's a different type of diva than Shannon for sure, but she definitely is that type that I'm like, she Paris annoys me so much, but I was surprised at how much I ended up liking her. I wouldn't say like I liked her a lot like later, but I liked her more. She became a lot more tolerable, and
Yeah.
I have no idea how that happened. She is a terrible human being,
No, she's
and
just
she would
very
drive
sure
me
of
nuts.
herself. She's one of my favorite characters.
She is very sure of herself, but at the expense of anyone else. It's like society is beneath her, and that's what I so when I say terrible human being, it's like terrible in terms of how do you fit in society. You don't really, because you don't want to fit in society,
Yeah.
because unless you're ruling over them like a tyrant, then they don't serve you. And so that's where my big problem is with Paris and why I dislike her, but she ends
Well,
up being a captivating character.
yeah. Well, the tragic thing about Paris, I think that her all of her qualities you don't like stem from her being ignored by her parents and basically being raised by her nanny. I think she was doing all that to try to impress her parents, get that attention, and
Sure.
then tragically, her kids ended up also being raised by the nanny. She ended up giving her kids the childhood that she didn't like.
Boy, if that doesn't speak to how we are. Gosh, I'll never do that when I'm a dad. And then you say the exact same words, like, oh crap.
Yeah, and then the Paris redemption arc is easy, came to my mind immediately. She's always there for Rory, and like in a moment,
Mm-hmm.
one moment is when Rory found out that Logan had cheated on her with all those bridesmaids when they were broken up, but maybe not broken up. The Ross and Rachel on a break thing for them,
Yeah.
and like she has like all the doors locked, and she's laying into Logan and like yelling at her for him, and Rory even says like, or she even says like, you want to chime in here? And Rory's like, no, Paris has it. She's got it. I agree with everything she's saying. That's a great moment, great episode. And Rory
It's
and Paris were a good pair.
shockingly so. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think after the first season, like they definitely introduced her as a rival, and there are
yeah,
definitely times in the first maybe two seasons when
yeah.
Paris was the rival. But for them to like be able to graduate together and Paris was fine that
Hmm.
they like shared the valedictorian spot.
Yeah.
Because that's what that was, right? They shared valedictorian because I
I
know they
think
both had
either
to
they
give a
shared it or
speech.
Rory got it, but I know Rory did the speech. Oh no,
Yeah,
they both did a speech, didn't they?
yeah, they both were slated to do the speech, and then like Paris was late, or like something uncharacteristic of Paris. Or I only watched the whole show once, so I don't
I'm
know for certain.
I'm actually rewatching it now, like a little bit at work because I'm re-listening to the Gilmore Guys podcast that goes to episode by episode. So I'll listen to the episode of Gilmore Girls and then I'll listen to their podcast. And I've been doing that since like February, like at work. I'm on
Speaking
season
of
7
which,
now.
let's take a break here because that is what we're encouraging you to do. If you have watched Breaking Bad last week, 2 weeks ago, we had an episode about the show Ozymandias, the episode in there,
Yeah,
and we watched through the episode Ozymandias, and then we talked about Breaking Bad, and we talked about it in the episode. I'm doing a terrible job of the promo here. I don't
you
have
go
my
for it.
copy. I don't have my copy of the ad, but go listen to that episode. If you're a Breaking Bad fan, watch Ozymandias. Go listen to us do a deep dive on it, and that's a new segment we're going to be doing. And we've got another one coming up pretty soon about The Office. So we're going to be watching Dinner Party, and we're going to talk over that episode. So
We are. And if you have any
good.
suggestions of what's the best episode of this show, tell us.
Yeah. All right, back to your regularly scheduled program. What do you have for our next diva?
Our next diva, I will go with one that I don't have a ton to talk about because I know you haven't seen the show, but Hillary Banks from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh. Oh, I'm just reacting. No
yeah.
reason.
No, I mean it's a rich family. They all have a little bit of it. She is the quintessential. Like she'll walk in and say, "Daddy, I need $300." Why? I just need $300. And this is back in the '90s when $300 was a lot more than $300. And
Money, please.
yeah, pretty much. She pretty much was money, please.
Both of those two, by the way, are also divas, but Parks and Rec has 4 freaking divas in the show, and
Yes.
3 of them, I'm like, yeah, I'm on board for them.
Yeah. But Hillary did have a soft spot. Like she did love her family, and she especially had a soft spot for Will, and even gave Will uh, a job on her talk show because you get rich enough, you get a talk show apparently. But yeah,
That's true.
I don't remember the details. I haven't watched that show all the way through in a while, but I just remember it's one of those characters where like I know there's a lot of people when you hear diva, they'll think, oh, you mean Hillary. So that's all I got to say about Hillary. I know you don't have a lot to chime in unless you remember from that one episode I made you watch. Was Hillary even in that?
Not that I remember.
Hmm.
I She might have been, but
Oh
I
no,
don't know
she
if I would have
was,
been.
but she just did a drive by. I'm like, oh yeah, they were watching this earlier. She was the one who told them that they were watching a repeat of that game show, but she didn't. That's all she had was one line.
I can't believe her. All right. Here is another character that I really hated, especially in the third season of this show. The last season she was in wasn't so bad. They toned her down. But that's Erica from Stranger Things.
Okay,
Erica is
yeah,
Lucas's sister, and she's very minimally in it in the first season, but they bring her in a little bit more in the second, and then they really bump her up to one of the main characters in season three.
yeah.
And that to me was like the biggest misstep of the season because you have Robin and
Steve
Steve
and
and
Dustin.
Dustin and Erica together,
Mm-hmm.
and Dustin and Steve kind of end up getting sidelined because of Robin and Erica, and I'm like, that is completely pointless to have them be like second fiddle in this storyline.
Mm-hmm.
I think that those are such dynamic characters. We don't need Erica to take over this storyline because not only is she a diva, she's really more like just that annoying younger sister sibling, and they really leaned heavily for me into the annoying side of that. But the reason why I call her a diva more than because she's not like me like a Miss Piggy type diva,
Yeah.
but she is very me focused. She
Yes.
comes in, makes sure she's always getting these free scoops and
But the
samples
free
from.
you really don't like that she got the free samples.
I hate like it's not a problem to get some free samples, but for like the way that they do it and be like, this is entitlement. I'm like, I should get it because I'm the customer. It's like the Karen of the 80s sort of attitude to walk in and be like, I get this. This is what I deserve. And like I always hate that. It just makes me sick to see people do that. So
I just remember last time when we talked our first Stranger Things episode with Dan, you went on a rant about the ice cream scoops then too.
it's not fair. That's not how you make a profit.
Yeah, I like Erica in small doses. But
She
yeah,
was much better than last season, for sure.
yes, she was. And Matt's not saying that there's not good female characters. We still got Eleven and Joyce and Nancy and Max. There's just Erica doesn't need to be one of them.
And even Robin was good,
Oh
but
yeah, I like
just
Robin a lot.
if it was just Robin, Steve, and Dusty, I thought that storyline would have been
Dusty,
much better. Did I say Dusty?
you did.
Dustin.
Yes.
I think that storyline would have been a lot better, but adding Erica into the mix just made it frustrating for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think they feel like they needed a fourth to round them out, but they could have done without them.
Yeah. Well, I think that they should have taken from like because that was also the season of like boys and girls and dating, and we just don't understand each other. And then because of that, like this is gonna sound like I don't like girls, but it was like it really was the boys in that season didn't have as much to do because they were just like the dumb boyfriend, like guys just don't get it, teenage guy. And yeah, I've been a teenage guy. I get that we don't understand romantic cues when we are growing up. I fully understand that and agree with it. But then because of that, they end up being a little more sidelined because the story is a lot more focused on 11 and Max and their connection for that season. Yes. So pull one of them out of that little like we're guys, we're stupid. Pull them out of there, throw them with Dustin and Steve, and have more fun.
I'm sure you can imagine. Matt and I were both definite ladies' men in high school.
Yeah, totally. All the girls just absolutely loved us.
We weren't friends in high school either, but I'm just assuming that you were not.
I didn't know you in high school, but I know enough about you now to know that you repulsed women. I'm sure that's how.
I was going to say it nicer than that, but basically.
Yeah, that's you talking to me. That's not me talking to you. I'm sure that people just like women saw you like a wounded animal and just flocked to you, like Back to the Future.
Is that an insult or a compliment? I don't know.
It's both. It's backhanded. I do great backhanded compliments.
All right, so Matt, why don't you go with one of your picks next?
All right. So I know I just had Erica, but I know you don't have quite as much as I have. So I'll do a very quick one.
Okay.
I've got 3 left. And I know you've got 2 left. And so my 3, one of them is one that I actually like really, really, really love this character. One is this character grew, and that was the point of them being entitled at the beginning. And the third one is one that I hate. and that one is Jenna Maroney from 30 Rock.
That's one of mine. Yep.
Oh, is it one of yours? Oh my gosh, she's so terrible. She is like the worst parts of Tahani mixed with the worst parts of Shannon mixed with the worst parts of a Kardashian. And like there's nothing to me that's redeemable. Her jokes aren't even that funny. I can't think of like a funny one that she had. There was a couple like ones that now are a little more biting. Like this was way before anything came out. This is early 2000s. But
Yeah.
she made a joke about, it was like, oh, I have tremendous willpower. I once said no to Harvey Weinstein way before anyone knew anything about Harvey Weinstein in the public media.
Yeah.
Like, shows how much of a secret it was in
Yeah.
celebrity circles for so long. But
Yeah,
not a funny character.
I haven't seen that show in forever. I haven't seen that show in forever, and so I don't have any specific redemption moments for her. But it's just like it's just I just remember her personality type as like a diva, and I just remember really not liking her. So I have to agree with that for sure.
Yay, we did it. We landed on the same one. Okay, so since I stole one of yours, maybe this is the another one that you have. But we just talked about Ted Lasso, and so one of the
I debated
points,
her or not.
actually, no, I've got Jamie Tart.
Oh, okay.
Now, this is the only male that I had on here. There was,
Well,
like I said,
Tom.
we had Tom Haverford, and he was one we could talk about. But Jamie Tart, his arc is that of going from diva into team member. And I remember when we talked about Ted Lasso, the last, like season 2, Paul highlighted how much he enjoyed that arc. And I also agree that was just very great to see him go from, I'm the guy, look at me, get the ball to me, to team player, sacrificing the goal to make sure that the team got the goal instead of him getting it. And so he had a really good arc, and he is not the same as on the list.
No.
And so to view that like a diva as a negative character type and to grow out of it into being someone who can function with others and is not about you, that is stronger.
So I remember, was he a diva in season 2, or did he have his redemption in season 1 or season 2?
I think it was season 2 is the redemption, because I think season 1 he ended up off the team, but he was a little bit of the villain of season 1 in parts, and that he ended up off the team for a better holistic environment for them.
Yeah, I agree that I agree with him for sure. I mean, in season 1 he was insufferable, and like you said, he really did not have any redemptive qualities until he had that redemption arc.
Yeah,
like he didn't get redeemed until he got redeemed. But you know what I mean?
What? No way. I can't believe that's how that works. So yeah, I didn't have a lot to talk about with him because we talked about Ted Lasso last about a month ago. So
okay. So one of mine, my last one, I'm guessing is on your list. Are we going to go to Brooklyn for yours?
No,
I was talking about Gina Linetti from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
I forgot to add her. She's one that I don't like.
Overall,
she's funnier. She's funnier than some others.
Overall, I don't like her. I think I don't think the show suffered in quality by getting rid of her. I think if getting rid of any of the other main characters would have been a hit to the show.
Yes.
But she did have some moments. She wasn't always completely insufferable. She did have a nice bond with Captain Holt, which is weird because you think for no nonsense as he is, that he would have fired her right away. But even when he went to another department, didn't she go with him?
I can't remember. It's been so long since I've watched through Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
It's been a couple of years for me too, but I know that she did with, I think when he went and he got demoted to the promotions and he was trying to find names for the penguin or the peacock, then she went with him or something.
Boy, out of context, I can't remember. There's so much about that show I don't remember it. So this isn't ringing a bell for me. So just hearing, just trying to go name a penguin or a peacock. I'm like, what is going on?
Well, the police force mascot.
Oh yeah. Okay.
But it was one of those she's incompetent at time, or not incompetent. She could do her job really well. Apathetic, but she works well with Holt.
Yeah. And Holt gets the best out of her of anyone on staff there.
Yeah.
I think that she is a character that is fine for a cast ensemble, but if there was going to be You said it well, where it's like it really didn't suffer when she left. If it was like that '70s show where it's like some of the mains left and then
Yeah.
she had to get called up to be a bigger role, it definitely you would have felt the annoyance whether you've been like, okay, this isn't as strong of a
Yeah.
character because she was rather one dimensional. Apart from like loyalty is a good characteristic,
Hmm.
but a dog's loyal too. It's like that doesn't make it for a really good dynamic character. It's just okay.
Yeah.
There's more to you than just being selfish, but
And they
that's
never got rid of Cheddar.
and that too. But like that's her main thing.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. So my top one, the one that I love. So one thing that's great about Divas, I that's a weird sentence for me. One thing that's great about Divas though in a comedy is that they can be so dramatic and so outlandish and so over the top that that is what creates the good comedy. And to have other characters that will point out like the hypocrisy of it, or it just even will be foils just by being there. And so this character from Arrested Development, there's actually two divas, but the daughter Lindsay isn't that funny compared to her mom.
Yeah.
Lucille Bluth is very much a diva, is very much a me, is this larger than life character.
Yeah.
And I think the first line that we had from her was on the boat when she's like, look, Michael, look at what the homosexuals have done to me. And like the way Jessica Walter delivers that line too was the absolute conviction. Like that tells you everything you need to know about this character. And so I love Lucille Bluth, not because she's a good person, but because she is so hilarious to laugh at.
Yeah.
The line that I'll consistently quote and for Angie that like this was Angie's favorite line of the whole series was early on when Buster is complaining about his mom and then
Hmm.
like he's just like, oh, it's like she with gets off on withholding things or whatever.
Yeah.
And so then she comes in later in the episode is like, here, Buster, here's a candy bar. No, wait, I'm withholding it. Look at me getting off. Like, just the delivery of it is so good. I this character wouldn't be nearly as good without Jessica Walter's just fantastic comedic timing.
Oh yeah. My favorite line of hers is, "Buy a banana. What could it be? $10?"
What could a banana possibly cost? Here's $10. Go see a Star War.
It's great because the funny thing is that we've talked about that show is just like a revolving door of everybody is terrible.
Yes.
It's like who are we rooting for changes moment to moment.
And the credit of that show too is that I don't always like that. I like it's hard to have no characters that you root for. But I think where Arrested Development did it well too is that Michael ends up being a bit more of a straight man, even though he's
Hmm.
comedic in his own right. But
Yeah.
his horribleness doesn't look as bad when you compare it to the rest of them, but it really is like this white knight syndrome, even though there's not the racial tension, but it's like this I can say that I'm better than the rest of my
Yeah.
family and real and like really no, he sucks just as bad. His ideas aren't good. He's also screwing over the company accidentally though. He's altruistic, but he sucks at it.
Hmm.
And that's what makes the show so good.
I would say you could make an argument that Buster is naive enough and stupid enough that he can't
Yeah.
like he doesn't do anything actively bad. He just
Yeah.
stumbles into being terrible because he's an idiot.
Yep. If anything, he has a juice addiction. That's
Yeah.
that's his downfall. or or his I'm a monster with the oh man,
Yeah.
we're due for another good Arrested Development episode. That's such a funny show.
Yeah, it was a good show.
So, if you want to also include Jessica Walter's other character that's great as from Archer, Mallory Archer, it's the exact same thing as Lucille Bluth, but you know she runs a spy agency instead of a real estate tycoon.
And if
So
you take Lucille Bluth, you take away a little bit of the horribleness, add in some actual emotional development, you get Emily Gilmore.
that's true. 100%. Emily Gilmore is not nearly as funny, but
No.
she is a compelling character. Another one that I was surprised I liked as much as I did.
Yeah, because she's got a lot of emotional nuance, and she has her moments of funniness, I will say.
She does. I she has such a dry wit, and the dry wit of Emily is really solid.
Mm-hmm.
And you need a dry wit when you've got such like hatcha cha 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 sort of like comedy from coming out of Lorelai. Like it's the sarcastic pop culture
Yeah.
referential humor, whereas Emily's just straight like it's sarcasm too. Like that's what dry humor is, but it's just straight deadpan sort of
I did
delivery.
not come into this episode thinking we were going to talk about Gilmore Girls at all, but I'm here for it.
Get a couple of Gilmore Girls references going, and baby, you got a stew going. Well, that's it. That's all I got for Divas, and that's all that we need to dedicate to this terrible type of character.
Yeah.
But to be fair, we had more positive examples than I anticipated going into it. So
yeah.
All right. So last week we talked about TV shows from the 60s. And so one of the shows that we talked about was Hogan. I'm struggling all left and right through this because I have something else in my brain right now. Okay. Let me start over. So let's move into trivia. But before we do that, real quick, last week we talked about 60s TV shows. And also last week, the movie Mission Impossible came out. And I just really want this. This is another little small bit of trivia that I learned in the last week. So have you ever heard of the song YYZ by Rush?
I have not, but go ahead.
Okay. So that song is Morse code at the beginning of it because it's like they named it after this airport they're at called the designation YYZ. So the song starts off like a dun 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 dun, and that's like Morse code for YYZ. So they put Morse code in their song. Well, what I found out was that Morse code for M is 2 long dashes, and Morse code for I is 2 short dots. And so when we talked about Mission Impossible last week, if you think about the music, it's dun 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 dun. I'm like, wait, that's Morse code for MI over and over. And I'm like, that is genius. So I figured I should share that now that the movie's out, and we talked about that last week. So
did you do that on purpose?
We didn't do that on purpose last week, but that just ended up coming out that way.
I mean, like, did they do that on purpose with the music?
I believe so. If they didn't, like, that is the biggest accident ever.
You know, one of the biggest accident ever for me. I was editing an old youth convention. So
what a segue!
I used to be the guy when me and Matt and our youth leaders. I would take my video camera to youth convention. And I would just make a compilation video of the weekend, and it was the dodgeball, right? And I was putting the song "Rock Fist" by 1,000 Foot Crush. At one point, it's like da da. Music comes back in, and without even trying, I was just moving things around. It perfectly that big moment perfectly lined up with like the winning shot and like the dodgeball being thrown to the ground in celebration. I'm like, whoa, okay, I'm not going to touch a thing. That lined up perfectly on accident, and it was like one of my proudest moments.
One of your proudest moments is an accident. Well done, Brian.
You know, a lot of people have proudest moments that are called accidents, and they call them their children.
Jeez. And there you go. All right, that's how we're ending that part. We're gonna move into trivia.
Yeah, go ahead. I could have gone further. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't. So last week we talked about 60s shows. One TV show that we talked about is Hogan's Heroes, and so one of the co-creators of Hogan's Heroes, his name's Albert Ruddy. He after a short like software stint, or no, I think he was an architectural stint. But a friend of his convinced him to like go do this pitch for the show to CBS. And so they pitched Hogan's Heroes and they went for it and they loved it. And so he's like, maybe this is my calling. And he went on to produce some movies. And so the first big movie that he was given was what? That he won an Oscar for? 1972, The Godfather. So the guy who started Hogan's Heroes went on to produce The Godfather and just made a buttload of money off of that.
Yeah.
So,
and I said this last week, I mean, this is after the recording, but that is 2 very different pieces of media right there.
100%. He also did, what else? He did the original The Longest Yard. So he actually passed on doing Godfather 2 because he really wanted to do The Longest Yard.
The original one with Burt Reynolds?
Yep.
Okay. Not the new one with Burt Reynolds.
Not the new one with Burt Reynolds.
Well, I knew, but I mean the newer one. That was already almost 20 years ago.
I remember seeing Longest Yard in theater, and it came out the same day as Madagascar 2, and I'm like, which Chris Rock movie do I want to see?
The one where he dies.
Yes.
It's been long enough. Spoilers don't matter.
Oh no.
All right. So, surprise, surprise, I have a Muppets trivia
No way.
because we talked about Miss Piggy.
We did.
So, Matt, did you know that, you
Probably
probably
not.
already know.
Brian,
You know that,
no one knows but you. Go ahead.
no, people know about this. Okay, who was the performer of Miss Piggy originally?
Not Frank Oz?
It was Frank Oz, but
Okay.
in season 1 of The Muppet Show, it would go back and forth between Frank Oz and one other performer, and it was a very jarring because when she was performed by the other performer, it was completely different Miss Piggy voice. And then starting with season 2, they tried to really give her her own personality and kind of made her like the character she is, and that's when Frank Oz took her over full time. So who did Frank Oz share performing Miss Piggy with in season 1 of The Muppet Show?
William Shatner.
Yes.
That is a very different timbre of voice. All right, well there you go. Let us know if you know the answer to that, or if you're like me and you believe that Brian is asking too specific of questions for us to be able to guess. Just look it up. Look it up. There you go, and then you can submit and be like, I knew that all along.
Yeah.
So there you go. But interesting trivia nonetheless. Well, that's it for this week's episode. I'm off to go be a diva. So I'm Matt.
I'm Brian.
And we'll remind you to stay tuned and keep watching. Now, who's going to give me my coffee?